So, Gene, what scares you the most? Witches, vampires, artificial intelligence?
I take the fifth. It's the spooky season, though, and time for Future Forward Halloween edition.
We'll check out some of the scariest tech of 2018.
So do not be scared. I'm Gene DeRose.
And I'm Steve Rosenbaum, and let's launch. So Gene, is someone going to creep up behind you and are there...
Yeah, I'm in my suburban remote edition here, so who knows what can happen. The one thing I'm worried about most is my dog barking.
What about if we cut away and come back and you're just wrapped in toilet paper?
You know what? The way my tech gets managed on these things, that could happen regardless.
All right, so we've got a lot of scary stuff. 2018 turns out to have been a particularly scary year so far. But before we do that, we'll do loving and hating, and then we'll dive right into scary stuff. We've got 5 scary categories. But first, what are we loving?
So I'm loving something that I haven't always loved, which is what I'll call Apple's App Store makeover. People generally don't notice these things except subtly, but we'll show a few screens. But they've started to kind of editorialize and make it a little more flesh and blood feeling. I have a feeling they have some more staff working on it. But I think it's just a little more inviting and something I might check periodically in more than just a utilitarian, I need to look something up way. And I would point specifically, and hopefully we'll show some screens, to a little feature that hangs right off the beginning of it called App Culture. And the one that's currently there is about the apps that are around the live photo capability that Apple has native to the phone's camera. And it's a really nice way of actually kind of leading you into how things might work. So
I have to tell you, they've been more and more talking about human curators.
Makes sense to me.
They have human curators on the news product. Now, they don't promote the names. It's not like they author them. But they've got a whole human team on the news product that's curating. And the fact that the App Store seems more like it's got an editorial voice, I think is great.
You're right.
Yeah.
And in fact, to just augment that, they're kind of almost on a daily basis saying, apps we like, what we like today, these kinds of things. So hopefully they're not competing with loving and hating here. I don't think they'd ever hate anything.
Yeah.
But I hate things sometimes. And so on to hating. And I'm hating Instagram's newsfeed right now. I've talked about this sort of thing before in the context of Facebook, but it really pisses me off when you do not know where you are, when things are not presented in a reasonable order. And I suspect this may have something to do with Instagram's leaders departing the company, but they're letting the algorithm dictate what you see and when you see it, and you instantly get lost. If you hit reload 3 times on your Instagram top of news feed, you better have already noted what it is you saw and saved it, because you're not going to be able to find it again, and things show up out of order. I don't get it. It doesn't appeal to me. I don't know. Do you notice this?
So I have a theory. When big companies buy other companies, Amazon being famous for that, sometimes they leave them alone, like Twitch, and sometimes they say, you know what? No, you're going to come join the mothership. And I think Facebook left Instagram alone, but as it's become clear that they're not going to lure young people back to Facebook, and that the data has to be just daunting, right? Which is that they're increasingly looking like mom and dad's Facebook, and so I just can imagine that in order for Systrom to leave, in order for him to walk out the door, and in a kind of a hostile way, there have to have been not one bad meeting, but 50.
Yeah.
And each one where Facebook's saying, well, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, we're going to tweak this, and we're going to feed traffic here. And the Instagram guy's going, look, the reason why we work is because we don't treat our users that way. And Facebook going, yeah, that's great. Now sit back down. And I think the Facebooking of Instagram is definitely happening.
Yeah, well, and it just sucks to me that one of the confounding features, is this whole thing about not letting you see what's most recent in the order that you want. I chose to follow these people or be friends with them because I want to hear from them. Don't you tell me which one I want to see the most.
All right. Well, this is gonna be a perfect transition into our Halloween show because there are scary things afoot. So we pulled together a handful. You may have other scary things you'd like to share with us. But let's start with this phrase I'd never heard before: virtual cannibalism. Um,
Yeah.
Did you understand? I mean, the scariness of it, kind of, or did you have to read in?
I mean, I had to read in a little. I mean, it's such a striking turn of phrase that it invites many different kinds of ways you might interpret it before you find out kind of what it is. But yeah, cannibal. It's something that it's indicative of this whole flock of things. We're not going to mention everything that's in some of the articles we're going to link to you, but you may want to look at these because this is a laundry list that's pretty daunting. But do you have a snapshot definition of?
I mean, we're obviously talking about AI, right? So let's start up at the 30,000 foot level, which is lots of people have been talking about scary AI.
Of course.
But what we found as we dug into it was some very specific things that were scary. And the fact that, artificial intelligence could essentially inhabit your persona, if you will.
That's right.
And then replicate you.
Right.
This is no longer a sci-fi scary thing. This is a real thing.
Yeah. And it has multiple iterations and ways it can present, because obviously we all know what phishing and other kinds of things have been in the past, but it can be a visual representation, it can be acting like you, it can be recognizing and anticipating you. It's a very scary list. And the other thing that I think is a high level view of this, because people will say, we're not at the singularity yet, and this is just awkward stuff. Oddly, the dumber the AI is, the scarier some of the things it might do. And so it will also get scarier as it gets more sophisticated. But when it's so simple-minded that it'll start to make mistakes that are scary, right? Like, kill or eliminate someone because it thinks they're food as defined by some criteria they developed. It's a very odd, in this internet 3.0, 4.0, or whatever you want to call it, it's a wild west that is, I'm glad it's Halloween.
Yeah. So let's talk about this idea that AI can read your mind. Yep. Predict your thoughts and read your mind. Now, caveat, we found this in the New York Post. So as with all things in the New York Post, you have to put air quotes around it. But I actually thought it was, I hadn't thought of it in terms of mind reading, but, certainly they made a good argument that, when AI has access to enough of your behaviors, I mean, it can say, you'll like things like this, right?
Right. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned the New York Post, because in the context of what the actual content might be and how you choose to both write an article and, in the Post case, put a headline on top of it, in some ways it's the scariest headline level thing, but anticipating and knowing you so well, it can act like you or suggest to you or things like that. I don't know. Absent the specific scary things, I'm not sure that part scares me that much.
All right, so let me give you an example.
Yes.
I'm sure that if I go into your Amazon profile, I will find that you rarely buy pink shirts. And that you rarely buy Hawaiian shirts, and that you rarely buy checked clothing or farmers, So
how do you know these things about me?
I'm just by having looked.
You happen to be right.
Yeah. So Amazon has the ability to start saying, "Hey, Gene, we found a jacket we think you'll like," right?
Yep.
Hey, Gene, your wife's birthday's coming up, and you don't know this, but we know that she's really been looking at like a new toaster oven. Yeah. Bad idea for a birthday present. But like all of a sudden, all this information we're putting out, we think of it as a series of isolated clicks, like buy dog food or buy sneakers. But in some ways, Amazon knows more about it knows you buy dog food every 2 weeks.
It knows what times of day you tend to order things. It knows, how much you spend, which version of your cash or credit you use the most. Yeah, I mean, we're talking about multiple generations beyond the original kind of Netflix. If you like this, maybe you'll like that kind of stuff, and it gets pretty detailed. I think once you get into the specifics of some of these things, it's really it does get scary.
So let's talk about our favorite scaremeister in AI land, and then we'll move on to another scary topic. The person who's been speaking with the most dire tone about AI is Elon Musk.
Yes.
And as a guy who runs a lot of tech, when he says, AI, an AI arms race could spark World War III, like he's got there's no upside for him in, his space travel business or his solar panel business or his, battery powered car business to be saying things like this. So is he just nuts?
No, I mean, he may that's a separate question. But I do believe he doesn't stand on ceremony. He's different from others in that sense. He doesn't kind of give an F about certain things. He feels inoculated from the downsides of things he says. So he doesn't behave like others. And I tend to trust him in that sense. And I also think, to his credit, all this stuff has been one of the big stories of 2018, but it was mid 2017 when he started beating this drum and got kind of attacked for it. This is pre-smoking a doobie on webcam, I'm going to take my company private. And he has been kind of on top of some of these things that's anticipated some scary things that have started to happen. The other thing about this, to just briefly say, is that part of what we've dug into are some stories that have been going on for a while. This Tay.ai, which some people know about, this Microsoft bot, that started out as an innocuous sort of chat social person that then kind of became a Nazi, anti-Semite, crazy, mean person. When you think of what can be done with the information, and then you think that kind of things like, hatred or our least common denominator instincts, I think this is where Musk has been on to where AI might go, right? So
maybe Trump is actually just an AI who's amplifying our worst nature.
Oh my God. You know what? It's one of these things where we talk about the reality of the last 5 years being more crazy than your sloppy screenwriter would come up with. And I think that's what's starting to happen with AI. Post 9/11, we heard all about how people were talking to screenwriters to try to anticipate terrorist scenarios. With AI, it is endless, and there are some things that are pretty amazing.
All right, so let's jump to number 2, because we've got 5 scary things, and we're going to run out of time if we don't move faster. Number 2, smart homes. Are they spying on you, and how scary is that?
They are, right? Well, I mean, I think that we're at the stage now. It's kind of like the discovery stage where and it syncs with Elon Musk. The obviousness of Siri or Alexa or Hey Google hearing and taking in and interpreting knowledgeably things that we're saying and our actions being collected means that the groundwork is being laid for doing, it's all your semantics, right? Are we being spied on in an aggressive, overt way with intent behind it yet? Not necessarily so much, but maybe here and there. But you know what? We're setting up the circumstances that mean either these people that we trust or others that hack into our system are going to be able to do some pretty scary things.
Wait, you forgot one, though. What's the Facebook one? Platform?
Oh my gosh.
Is that what it's called? Or forum or whatever?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
exactly. And by the way, I would also count things like Nest and these new security systems and, even my Sonos, which has got its tentacles in every audio unit in my home.
So let me just play this out. So you've got your air conditioning, your heating, and your door, and your music, and your grocery ordering all wired through your Wi-Fi and your phone, and then you get into a debate with Verizon and you don't pay your bill, and they go click. And now all of a sudden you're, wait, I'm locked out of my house. I can't turn on the heat.
Oh, totally. This kind of thing is going to happen a lot. And it's very much also a case of be careful what you ask for, right? I mean, some of the very apps that we've talked about over the last few years, not just here, but elsewhere, that are precursors to this are, while you're out on a date, young parents, you can spy on your child in his crib to make sure that they're safe, right? Well, we're enabling that can be turned on its head. So I think this is the kind of stuff that, welcome to the future.
All right, so we're going to jump right to number 3. And I guess I hadn't thought of this as scary. I got to be honest, and it's, I'm now embarrassed because, of course, it is scary. But number 3 is drones. Are drones scary?
I think drones are very scary.
Are only big drones scary, or the smaller they are they even more scary?
Oh, I would say the smaller they are. And I'm going to give you a little offhand. My first experience in the end, now that I'm realizing it, of scary drones is in the second Star Wars movie, number 5, when Luke Skywalker is on the frozen planet Hoth, and it's the first time you ever see these spy drones unleashed on the world. And these are tiny little buggy things. And I think that's the kind of version of a scary small drone, which is different than the large ones that can maybe inflict damage and do other things. But we're in.
What's the Michael Crichton book? There was a Michael Crichton book written a long time ago about scary little drones.
Not Andromeda Strain. You're talking about was it called Virus, or
by the way, let's stop right there. I just want to say you reached into the air and pulled maybe one of my 3 favorite movies of all times out of the air. Love Andromeda Strain. Oh.
It's a great and scary and really a precursor. And when you look back on it as a book and movie, primitive, has not aged well.
So should we have like a Halloween party and show Andromeda Strain as the horror movie?
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. Wow.
So I at TED 2 years ago, one of the drone developer characters showed a swarm of drones flying over the room. And, as with all things robotic, it was both unbelievably exciting and kind of terrifying at the same time.
Yeah. Well, and probably because it gives you that swarm of killer bees feel, right? I think there's a sort of a threatening aspect to it, as well as what they might actually do to just chase you down or overwhelm you.
So here, let's go into spy mode for a second. What do you think the Secret Service? How is the Secret Service gamed out somebody showing up with a drone the size of a pack of matches with poison on it and flying it at a foreign dignitary?
Honestly, we don't want to leap forward to our last subject, which is China's version of this, but I think this is kind of what you're talking about in a way, because once the powers that be have access to this stuff, whether it's private sector stuff that they're allowed into or what they'll deploy on their own, it's going to be, when you say Secret Service, I think a little more about, protecting the president, but when you think about, KGB kinds of things, it's going to happen. They're going to be able to, stuff that we saw. I don't know if you watched 24 when it first came out, which now is going back 15 years ago. A lot of stuff there where they're in the control room and they're able to access every kind of public and private camera that exists in the world to make sure they're tracking things everywhere. Some of this stuff is certainly going to be technically possible. And, with net neutrality and other kinds of things, Patriot Act, are we protected against this?
All right, so drones, much like robots, awesome, terrifying.
Yeah.
Love playing with them. Wouldn't really want one armed with weaponry chasing me down the street.
Well, I'll agree with that, and I think this is starting to become meta to all technology. But I also am fascinated and love drones as a person who loves all sorts of advances in journalism and live broadcasts and sports and things like that. The idea that drones, are the sort of, Goodyear blimp on steroids is also wonderful, right?
Do you by any chance own a really expensive drone?
I don't own it, but I've been in the presence of a couple of them, and
I think this audience needs you around the holidays to buy yourself a really expensive drone and then take the podcast on a drone journey with you. We would appreciate that very much.
That would be really intense, and that would be fun to do in a place like Manhattan. I mean, it's really. I think you and I are both friends with a Facebook internet veteran who's done amazing things on the west coast of California.
Yep, we indeed are. Chris Anderson, not the Ted Chris Anderson.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get to one that doesn't seem immediately scary. I mean, I it was on the list, it was off the list, it went back and forth. But number 4 is driverless cars and trucks. Scary? Not scary? What do you think?
Well, let's break it down. There's the, are they just as capable as humans of making mistakes that are going to cause tragedy and danger? And even if they're less scary, is the fact that they're automated make those things seem like a big deal? We're as scared as we ever were about, airline death, even though the numbers have gotten minuscule compared to where they were 20 or 30 years ago, but our imaginations have gotten bigger. So I would say, yes, scary. More than just that, where else do you think it's scary? Is it that they can be hacked into and things like this? Where is the scare in that?
So you're saying a driverless car is scarier than a 90-year-old man who is half blind and has no hearing left driving down the street?
I'm not sure I'd say that. That's a pretty close one. If they're looking through the little bottom underneath the windshield, and above the little steering wheel through that little half moon, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
But,
the problem with our relationship to to me, what's scary about driverless cars and driverless trucks is not the technology, but the number of people who are make their living driving delivery vehicles, trucks, long haul trucks, taxi cabs, Uber vehicles, and who are going to, in some finite amount of time, 5 years, 10 years, 6 years, but not 20, right?
Right.
Like some very within the near future, all those people are going to be unemployed.
You know what? I don't. What angers and saddens me about those kinds of situations are our lack of preparing for them. I do not begrudge. I find myself neither a technology cheerleader nor a doom and gloom person. And if the better ways of doing things show up, humans, need to move on. And so I don't know about. I don't know about that.
It's a huge number, though.
But it's a huge number, and it's a huge issue. Look, retraining factory workers and, all this kind of stuff. This is all part of the same kind of idea. I can get political about it, but I won't right now.
All right. So last but not least, we've got about 5 minutes left, about 4 minutes left. Let's get to China. So the scariest thing. And it is not ironic for those of you that are looking at the show that picture of the Chinese leader the camera looks like an eye patch over him. China's surveillance state should scare everyone, says The Atlantic. Here's the thing about surveillance that scares me. I did a film years ago called Everybody's Watching You, and it was essentially about security cameras. The thing that I don't think I imagined when I did the film was that facial recognition would get so good. I mean, if you think about when you put up your pictures on Facebook and it now, this is a free product, it goes, "Oh, Gene, I see you took a picture of Steve. Would you like me to tag him for you?" The amount of technology operating in the background to take my face, compare it to your friend list, see whether or not, I'm wearing glasses or not wearing glasses, and it's shockingly good. So we're not very far away from all these cameras being tied together so that the government can say, let's see where Gene went every minute of his day for the last, say, 6 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, in the case of China, We worry about what our government's going to start to do with some of these things. We question whether Soviets and others, Russians and others, are doing this. China, it's what they do. It's what they've always done at their worst. And if anything, they're getting more authoritarian all of a sudden. And these technologies are in their hands. I mean, it's legal for them by their own law and accounting. And this is, there's a lot here. People are, what's brought to mind to me is the story this week around the Saudi, Saudi government and arguably murdering the Washington Post guy and dismembering him and everything else. And these are the kinds of things that are they're a reality. I mean, it's going to be a real question of how this stuff is governed and whether there are whole new kind of UN laws about these things, or I don't know. Is there such a thing as a UN law? Not that anyone doesn't laugh at, but.
So reading about China and the citizen score, I found myself thinking that I was just reading an episode of Black Mirror.
It's exactly what I was going to say,
yeah.
And I agree with you. Black Mirror is now, and we'll provide a list, but like these things, I think in some ways are scarier in the accumulation of these individual things that are actually happening, like a citizen score, like these, like what companies like Microsoft has tragically did with Tay and all these other kinds of things. Who knows what China's doing right now? We really don't.
All right, so just to wrap up our Halloween edition, Gene, let me put you on point for a second. So, are you scared?
I'm overwhelmed in a way that makes me kind of nervous. I have family members who have forever. They don't even want to go near the cloud. They want to protect things going back to our Jupiter days. Every bit of research we ever had showed that no matter how many articles got written, people in the end, if it saved them a few bucks or made their lives easier, would basically give their privacy away. We're entering a new era. You really have to start. I mean, we didn't even talk about the biggest kind of news that impacted a lot of people this week, which is the latest version of Facebook. 1 million or more identities getting hacked and things like this. This is really, I think we're going to really start to need guidance. I think you're going to see the stuff that feels anecdotal, the how stuff works, or DIY kinds of sites and stuff. We're going to really start to need a concierge to help us know what our options are in protecting ourselves.
Boy, you just ended on exactly the right point. So, Digital Concierge, next episode, or maybe the one after that.
I like it. It's true.
Have a fabulous Halloween.
You too.
Although we'll be back before then, but Halloween will fill your CVS with all manner of pumpkins and candy. And we will explore the future again next week.
Happy spooking.